Judith Maria and welcome to SG Global News. From the Parisian Basilica's preparation to celebrate 140 years of perpetual adoration of Jesus to the God-centered message shared by Zachary Levi, the lead actor of faith-based film The Unbreakable Boy, we have many stories to cover. This Parisian Basilica is preparing to celebrate 140 years of perpetual adoration of Jesus in the real presence of Blessed Sacrament. Perpetual adoration began on August 1, 1885, well before the Basilica's construction was fully completed, and has continued uninterrupted day and night ever since. Not even the 1944 bombings nor the global pandemic could stop the adorers from keeping the vigil with the Lord at this historic landmark.
In the northern part of Paris, within the 18th arrondissement, stands a hill approximately 130 meters tall. More than 17 centuries ago, Saint Denis, the first bishop of Paris, along with his two companions Rusticus and Eleutherius, was decapitated on this very hill. Today, this site is fittingly called Montmartre, the Mount of Martyrs. At the highest point of the city, atop this historic hill, stands the Basilica of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, an architectural masterpiece built in the Roman Byzantine style characterized by its intricate rounded shapes. After the Notre Dame Cathedral, it is the second most visited monument in the City of Light. While its elongated domes, impressive mosaics, intricate stained glass windows, and imposing sculptures make it a remarkable sight, the true draw for pilgrims worldwide is the uninterrupted presence of Christ in the Eucharist. Since August 1, 1885, the Basilica of the Sacred Heart of Jesus in Montmartre has hosted perpetual adoration of the Blessed Sacrament. Visitors can adore the Eucharistic Lord daily from 6:30 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. Except for Good Friday, the Blessed Sacrament remains exposed day and night in this shrine dedicated to the adoration of the Eucharist and Divine Mercy. Even during the 1944 bombings and the COVID-19 pandemic, adoration never ceased. When the Basilica was forced to close for 2 months due to the pandemic, the 14 Benedictine Sisters of the Sacré-Cœur de Montmartre took turns maintaining continuous vigil. The idea to build a new church dedicated to the Sacred Heart of Jesus was proposed in 1870 by Félix Fournier, Bishop of Nantes, following France's defeat and the capture of Emperor Napoleon III by the Prussians at the Battle of Sedan during the Franco-Prussian War. Fournier attributed France's downfall to moral decline following the French Revolution. He was joined in his mission by philanthropists Alexandre Legentil and Hubert Rouhault de Fleury, who became the key initiators of the Basilica's construction, which began in 1875. Marie-Adèle Garnier, a French woman, was inspired to establish perpetual adoration in the yet-to-be-completed church. She subsequently founded the Benedictine Sisters of the Sacré-Cœur de Montmartre, who continue to oversee nighttime adoration at the Basilica. Although the Basilica was only consecrated in 1919, perpetual adoration of the Blessed Sacrament has been ongoing since August 1, 1885. This year marks the 140th anniversary of this sacred tradition, and the Basilica has planned an extensive program of events to commemorate the occasion. The celebrations will begin with a novena from July 24th to August 1st, concluding each evening with a Holy Mass at 10 p.m. On August 1st, Cardinal Christophe Pierre, Apostolic Nuncio to the United States, will celebrate the Solemn Mass of the Sacred Heart at 3 p.m. The day's program includes teachings, a consecration vigil, compline, another Holy Mass at 10 p.m., meditative adoration until midnight, and a special blessing of the faithful and the city with the Blessed Sacrament at midnight. Additionally, a 4-day retreat will be held, led by Father Stefan, the Basilica's rector, in the presence of a relic of Saint John Maria Vianney. Though the celebration is still months away, faithful from around the world are already signing up to keep vigil with the Lord in this historic Basilica of Paris.
The Holy Father's condition remains critical, yet his spirits remain high. Recent tests have confirmed the onset of bilateral pneumonia in the 87-year-old pontiff. Despite his illness, Pope Francis ensured and checked in on Christian community in Gaza, a gesture that has deeply moved Catholics around the world.
The Holy See Press Office, via a communiqué on Tuesday, announced that the laboratory examinations, a thoracic X-ray, and the clinical condition of the Holy Father continue to present a complex picture. However, the Pope remains in good spirits. Pope Francis was admitted to the Agostino Gemelli Polyclinic on Friday due to respiratory issues. He was diagnosed with bronchitis and has remained in the hospital since. According to the latest press release, the Pope is suffering from a polymicrobial infection in addition to bronchiectasis and asthmatic bronchitis. He is currently undergoing cortisone and antibiotic therapy, which has made his treatment more complex. A follow-up chest CT scan also revealed the onset of bilateral pneumonia, necessitating further drug therapy. On Tuesday morning, the Pope received the Eucharist and spent the rest of the day in prayer and reading while also taking time to rest. Despite his hospitalization and physical weakness, he maintained his weekly call with the Holy Family Parish in Gaza. Reverend Gabriel Romanelli, the parish priest of the Church of the Holy Family, told Vatican News that the Pope sounded more tired than usual but that his voice was clear. Throughout his hospitalization, Pope Francis has continued to stay in contact with the parish via text messages, phone calls, and video calls. World leaders have called for prayers for the Pope's health and recovery. US Vice President J.D. Vance also urged people to pray for Pope Francis as he faces serious health challenges.
The landmark talks held in Riyadh between US and Russian officials ended in the consensus as both parties agreed to take steps to end the ongoing war in Russia. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who was the lead American delegate in the talks, hailed the discussions as a success and announced that both the countries has agreed to resume their respective embassies' operations in Washington and Moscow. The European Evangelical Alliance has issued a public lament urging European Christians to pray amid the ongoing violence and suffering in Ukraine 3 years after Russia's invasion. The statement comes as high-level talks among world leaders continue in efforts to end the prolonged conflict. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio led a team of negotiators approved by President Donald Trump in a 4-hour crisis meeting with a Russian delegation headed by Sergei Lavrov, Russia's foreign minister, on February 18th inside the Riyadh Palace in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. In a statement released on February 17th, the European Evangelical Alliance condemned Russia for its violent and unprovoked expansion into more Ukrainian territory. As European Christians, we lament, the statement read. Time will tell how much Ukraine will be heard and whether their wishes will be respected. Now more than ever, it is time to pray. The statement outlined key details of the conflict and also highlighted other unjust global wars that warrant similar lament. Additionally, the European Evangelical Alliance expressed sorrow over the prevalence of more propaganda than truth. They further declared its refusal to remain silent in face of injustice, violence, and murder, calling on national leaders to pressure the powers that try to get in their way through violence and destruction. The statement concluded on a hopeful note. We are people of hope, of love, and of peace. We believe in justice and mercy. We pray for eventual reconciliation and understanding for the way forward. We will not stop praying. We are determined and compelled by love to stand in the gap of the vulnerable and oppressed. 3 years is enough. We pray for sustainable peace and justice. 3 years after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the European Evangelical Alliance issued a public lament urging European Christians to pray amid the ongoing violence and suffering in Ukraine. In a statement released on February 17th, the European Evangelical Alliance condemned Russia for its violent and unprovoked expansion into more Ukrainian territory.
The first round of bilateral talks between the United States and Russia ended in consensus as both countries agreed to implement steps to end the catastrophic Russia-Ukraine war once and for all. In the landmark talks held in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, the Russian delegation led by Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and the American delegation led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio talked extensively about the ongoing war and the steps to improve ties between the two countries in the fields of trade, economy, and defense. Outlining the details of the 4.5-hour meeting, Secretary Rubio, in an interview with the Associated Press, said that the two sides had reached an agreement to resume their respective embassies' operations in Washington and Moscow. Rubio mentioned that the Russian delegates had also expressed their willingness to be included in a high-level team that would suggest recommendations to put a stop to the war. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky dismissed the bilateral talks as preposterous in an interview with Ukrainian state media and said that Ukraine would not accept the outcome as no officials from Kyiv or Brussels had taken part in the talks. Zelensky, who, according to media analysts, is disgruntled at the ongoing attempts aimed at fostering a relationship between the Cold War foes, is facing heat both domestically and internationally as the country is losing ground against Russian troops who have captured most of the area surrounding Kyiv.
We have a horrific news from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Innocent Christian blood has been spilled yet again in the nation. The Allied Democratic Forces, an Islamic terrorist group allied with Islamic State, have beheaded at least 70 Christians, leaving their remains in an abandoned Protestant church in the Central African nation.
The beheaded remains of 70 people were discovered over the weekend at the abandoned Kasanga Protestant church in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The victims were allegedly taken hostage by the Allied Democratic Forces, an Islamist extremist group with ties to the Islamic State, and held for several days before being killed. According to Open Doors International, many of the bodies found in the church belonged to individuals kidnapped by the ADF during various attacks in the Libero territory. The militant group has been particularly active in these regions in recent times. Since the late 1990s, the Allied Democratic Forces have carried out brutal massacres, kidnappings and lootings in the area, often collaborating with other militias and armed leaders. The group is considered one of the deadliest armed factions in the Kivu region. The Democratic Republic of Congo now ranks 35th on the Open Doors International's World Watch list, having risen 6 places since last year due to an increase in violence against Christians. An Open Doors spokesperson, John Samuel, has called on the international Christian community to remain in prayer for Christians and vulnerable communities in eastern DRC. He said, quote, "Pray for an end to violence and that the government at all levels will diligently, impartially and transparently address the violence and its effects. Pray for the church in the Libero territory as it seeks to bring physical and spiritual assistance to the families affected." End quote.
Israeli public is in a state of anguish and rage after receiving confirmed reports that 36-year-old Shiri Bibas and her 2 infant sons were killed by Hamas militants during their captivity in southern Gaza. The image of their kidnapping on the fateful day of October 7, 2023 resonated with millions across the world as a symbol of Hamas's brutality towards the hostages.
On Tuesday, Hamas announced it would return the bodies of 4 Israeli hostages, including the remains of a mother and her 4-year-old and 9-month-old sons, who are believed to be the youngest among the captives. In a Telegram message, the Islamic militant group also stated that it would release 6 living hostages on Saturday instead of the 3 hostages it had planned on releasing since the beginning of the deal. The Bibas family, consisting of 33-year-old Yarden, his 31-year-old wife Shiri, and their sons 4-year-old Ariel and 9-month-old Kafir, were kidnapped by Hamas militants from their residence in Nir Oz during the early hours of the October 7 attack. The harrowing image of Hamas militants dragging Shiri and her sons away that day became an enduring symbol of the hostage crisis. It was widely displayed at protests demanding stronger efforts in hostage negotiations. Yarden was separated from his family and placed in a cage in an undisclosed location in southern Gaza. During his captivity, he was kept in the dark about the fate of his loved ones and was taunted by his captors when he pleaded to see them. Yarden was released a month after the kidnapping as part of a temporary ceasefire and prisoner exchange deal brokered by the Biden administration. Although the exact circumstances leading to the deaths of the mother and children remain undisclosed, reports suggest that Shiri may have been sexually assaulted by her captors while her sons were starved in the days before their deaths. The news of the mother and children's death were met with rage by the Israeli public. Many Israelis had clung to the slimmest hope, believing that the family would return home to their father unharmed. Yarden, who is living with his sister in Tel Aviv after his release, was reported to be in a state of anguish upon being informed of the deaths of his loved ones.
A 30 million venture fund has been launched by a pro-life coalition. The fund will be allocated to projects aimed at actually reducing the killing of unborn children and providing resources to women considering abortion. A coalition of pro-life advocates has launched a 30 million venture fund aimed at shaping public policy and fostering a culture that values the sanctity of every human life. Pro-life advocates and philanthropists have also announced the creation of 2 new national initiatives, the Life Leadership Conference and the Pro-Life Venture Fund. These efforts are designed to guide the pro-life movement as it navigates the post-Roe versus Wade political landscape. These initiatives come in response to the leftist activists enshrining abortion in constitutions of states like Ohio and Arizona. In a memo written by Leonard Leo, Executive Vice President of the Federalist Society, Princeton University Professor Robert George, and philanthropist Ray Rudy, they state that the coalition will tirelessly work to provide genuine protection for unborn babies and practical support for pregnant women in need. They also commit to doing their part in making America a true land of justice for all. The $30 million from the venture fund will be allocated to projects aimed at actually reducing the killing of unborn children and providing resources to women considering abortion. Zachary Levi, known for his roles in Shazam and American Underdog, shares his experience working on the faith-infused film The Unbreakable Boy. Levi expressed that every struggle and challenge God brings into one's life doesn't have to be wasted, and there is always an opportunity for growth. Zachary Levi, the lead actor in a faith-infused film The Unbreakable Boy, shares a God-centered message. The movie tells the hopeful story of Austin, an autistic boy born with a rare brittle-bone disease who transforms everyone around him with his joyous outlook in life. The film follows Scott and his wife as they fight to secure the medical care Austin needs. Meanwhile, Scott struggles with alcohol addiction after losing his job, which triggers a personal financial crisis. Levi plays Scott, the father. In an interview with an American media organization, Levi expressed his hope that viewers walk away feeling that they are not alone and recognizing the beauty in life's challenges. He explained that every struggle and challenge God brings into one's life doesn't have to be wasted. There is always an opportunity to grow. Everyone faces moments when they think, this is not what my life is supposed to be. My life is supposed to be something else. Yet, Levi believes that God might be saying, is it because I have other plans for you? You can fight that, or you can accept it and see the beauty in what I'm trying to do in your life. Levi believes this is at the heart of what the film is about. Levi, now an expectant father with his first child due this spring, shared that he feels the film's message even more deeply now. The movie, based on the book of the same name by Scott Leret, is directed by John Gunn. It will be released in theaters on February 21st. That's all for today. Until we meet again, God bless you and thank you.